Hello, howdy doody, aloha, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Motor City Realists after a couple weeks off. I'm Zach, that's Mike. We are back in the studio. We have got some Lions games to catch up on. Patrick Kane is now a Red Wing. The Pistons are snowballing in the wrong direction, and college football has turned into the college playoff committee show. So we got all that in this show, but first things first, Mike. It's been a couple weeks. We're into December now. How was Thanksgiving? Did you spend some time with the fam?
Yeah, I feel like every episode that we have now is starts off hey, we took a few weeks off, and that's what we're
Yeah,
good
right.
for. But
We're
but
so
no,
good at the
yeah,
beginning of the season.
yeah, I know. No, it was good seeing the family. I know we're reminiscing about Thanksgiving. We're already getting into Christmas, but yeah, a little downtime. Got to watch football. Obviously, we'll talk about the Lions. Obviously, as they continued their streak of losing on Thanksgiving Day. But overall, everything's good. Looking forward to this upcoming Sunday, Christmas, and just everything. You coming back for Christmas, or you guys staying in the warm season?
Yeah, I'll stay down here. Actually, my family, a lot of my family's coming down here to experience Christmas in Florida. So yeah,
There
it'll be
you
a
go.
good time down here in the warm
They
weather.
got a destination now.
That's right. Yeah. So we will kick things off. I guess we'll catch up on the Lions first. Where we left it off, we were going into the Thanksgiving week, and that Packers game was, we talked so much about not saying same old Lions, but that was same old Thanksgiving Day Lions. And
Yeah,
I hate to be the one to say it, but we're gonna be realistic up in here. It was frustrating to
yeah,
watch.
that was bad, and I actually had it. If we did our episode, it was going to be Panic in Motown at that point. Nothing was working, and I think we talked about golf early in the season. We haven't talked about him for a while. He's been my quarterback. He's always been my quarterback. I'm gonna get your take a little later to see where you're at. He had two rough games, kind of back to back. I think he had what, six interceptions, or I think he had, I don't know, something outrageous, six interceptions, two games, something like that. Granted, a few tip balls here and there, but I mean, nothing worked. I mean, really, the only thing that worked was Jamar Gibbs, and he looked great those 2 weeks. But nothing. And then obviously, fast forward, we'll talk about Saints and stuff like that. We'll just quickly again talk about Green Bay, but yeah, nothing worked. Nothing worked. It didn't look good. Really, just everything about that game was just ugly. It was your typical Thanksgiving. I mean, nothing felt different. Unfortunately, the Lions did let you down.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things where I think we ran into like a Green Bay team that is starting to hit their stride. I want to give them a little bit of their props, and it's easier to do now that they don't have Aaron Rodgers, to be honest. But
Yeah,
but Jordan Love played great, and it just seemed like something where we probably just underestimated who the Packers were, and I think we went 0 for 4, 0 for 5 on fourth down. So yeah, we knew with how often Dan Campbell likes to go for it on fourth down, we were going to run into something like this eventually, where we just didn't get any of them. He was out coached, and it was not the way I wanted to start my Thanksgiving. And like for me specifically, I was with my fiance's family, and they don't like growing up Lions fans, like football is a part of the beginning of your
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
right? They don't do that as much, so like they have the game on for me because I love them, they love me, right? We're all a big happy family. So it's just me sulking on the couch because the Lions can't put together a product that they're supposed to be putting together. And it was frustrating, but especially against a divisional opponent.
yeah. It was.
That's just yeah.
No, I agree because like I said, it was definitely one of those things that you didn't expect. I agree with you that Green Bay's looking good, but to me, I I don't get it because look at that roster, and there's nobody on that roster that really scares you. I mean, Christian Watts played good. I think the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that's telling right now, and we've seen it in the past 2 weeks, and I'm wondering if the Bears are going to try it as well, is I've given tons of props to Sutton all season long. The past 2 games, he just looked slow. I mean, Watson was running by him.
Yeah, he
The
did get
Saints.
in that Thanksgiving Day
I mean,
game. Yeah.
they were just running go routes and running right by him, and that was one thing that's concerning to see, especially NFC as we continue to build momentum, and obviously looking at the playoffs. These teams are pass happy teams. For the most part, they're going to be able to do that. They got the big wide receivers, big fast wide receivers. So that's something kind of scary. I don't know where C.J. Gardner Johnson is in his rehab. What the plan is with that? I saw Houston today mentioned that he should be available before the playoffs. So that'll be good getting that back. But yeah, don't want to talk too much about a couple weeks ago, but that game was definitely a letdown. Um, love to see how they started with the Saints, but yeah, that game was a letdown. So what else? You got anything that you
Yeah,
want to
one more
mention on that
thing.
game?
Yeah, one more thing I want to touch on in that game, and I brought it up with the Baltimore game, is what Baltimore did is they won the toss and they took the ball, and we talked about how teams don't normally do that. Green Bay did that as well. They won the toss, they took the ball, and they scored on us. And I think teams are learning that Ben Johnson, he kind of goes away from the script if the first time they get the ball they're losing.
They're down.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into, we could just talk about the Saints game, because in the Saints game we get up so fast and then you see it snowball. We're up 21-0 before you can blink an eye. And now you kind of see why these teams, if you win the toss against the Lions, maybe you take the ball and it just throws the entire Detroit game plan out the window. I don't
To
know if
me,
that's what's happening. That's just what I'm seeing.
no, I agree, and I think getting away from Green Bay, getting into the New Orleans game, it was a great. I think there's a lot of things that they're doing this year that are setting records. I think they scored the most points, 21 points in the first quarter, like the quickest. I don't know, is NFL history, but like definitely for the Lions. Um, but there was just something about that where they scored 21 points. Then they went out for their next drive after that, and it was like 3 and out. And then there was another 3 and out. And you just kind of had this feeling like, okay, there's a little momentum building, even though New Orleans was down 21-0. And it's like, how do you you can't let a team, and they're you completely deflated the stadium. And then here we are, chipping away, chipping away, chipping
Mm-hmm.
away. And don't get me wrong, obviously we won that game, but my concern is this goes back to the Aubrey Pleasant last year. We made the change. It seems like the offense got better. Since week 7, we're the worst offense. We're the 31st, 32nd ranked defense in the NFL. That's unheard of, the change. But right now, we kind of previously mentioned it. I don't know if you've watched any film or if you've paid attention to what Hutchinson is going through. I mean, every play he is getting double teamed. There's sometimes he's getting triple teamed. He's getting chipped. I mean, there's not a single pass rush where he is able to be one on one, and there's absolutely no help. So it was nice to see Bruce Irving come in and get that sack early. See that motor was still there, but foreshadowing. Obviously, we're still in the thick of things. I mean, potential number 1 seed, number 2 seed here, obviously, but you can't help but wonder. I mean, what the next year's draft class is going to look like. I mean, because I feel like we can't, unless there's a huge free agent signing, we can't not get Hutchinson help, because I feel like that is one of the biggest contributing factors right now on our defense.
Yeah, and Ali McNeil just went on IR yesterday, I believe. So that
He got
doesn't help
banged
that
up. He came
situation.
back. So he's
Yeah. And that's been actually, that happened in the Packers game as well. He was kind of, he kind of had to be, they stopped play for him. He walked off the field and all that. But yeah, it's and I'm glad you brought up the defense, because look, we call ourselves moisture realists. We're gonna be realistic here. I'm gonna be realistic. We're 9-3, and this is the best Lions team I've ever seen, right? And the best start we've had since, I think they said 1960, before we were on the moon.
Yeah, 6-4.
And yeah, so but this defense is not a championship winning defense. We cannot make it to the Super Bowl with the way this defense is playing right now.
Yeah, and that's the concern. And I know we want to talk about some college football playoffs a little later, but my quick segue is, obviously I always reference being a Buckeye fan. I know it's a little different being a Lions fan here, but being a Buckeye fan, just quickly, my 2 cents is, all these people are up in arms about the Buckeyes, McCord, all that stuff. I know it's not close to your heart, but it's the same thing with the Buckeyes. You got a loyal fan base, but you actually put that team in the mix of things. and they're going to get blown out. Their offense wasn't there. Defensively, for the Buckeyes, that's what carried them. Where Detroit is kind of the opposite. I feel like the offense. I mean, I don't know. I remember back years, not even years ago, a couple of years ago, when we needed to go down and score. I always held my breath. Like the camera angles were always like the quarterback would throw the ball and you'd hold your breath and you're just waiting for a pick. Now it's like I don't hold my breath and I'm just like, how is Amra open? How is Laporta doing this? Like, who's going to be open? How are these guys finding these seams? And like you mentioned, we love going for fourth down. How, it's just crazy. It's totally different team. We're scoring at will. I mean, the offense. I mean, we're talking about Laporta. 5 games needs I think 371 yards to beat to pass Dick Butkus for the all-time rookie record. They say tight end is like the hardest position for a rookie to produce in, and I mean, just look at what he did last game. But not to get too far ahead of myself. Yeah, I just feel like this team is offensively bound great, but defensively, I don't know. I want to love Aaron Glenn. I want to like everything he does, but I just feel like in the thick of things, like you said, you're going to match up against San Francisco, even the Eagles, something like that. Like if that's really the teams, we're not even talking about the AFC. These guys are just going to air it out, and I mean, what are we going to do?
Yeah, and obviously it could be a different story if we had a healthy defense. We lost CJ Gardner-Johnson early in the year, and then it's been we just mentioned Lee McNeil, and you said Hutchinson's getting double teamed, and I think before Detroit was winning games on the fact that teams just weren't prepared to play this Detroit, and now they're prepared. Like you said,
now
they're
they've
double
seen the
and triple
product,
team.
yeah.
Exactly.
They can scheme for it.
They know what Detroit is going to do to beat them, and it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson on defense. So what are they doing? They're double, triple teaming him, and then on the offensive side, it's just get Ben Johnson out of his rhythm. And we see that when they're taking the ball first, but really the thing that I hang my hat on in what I am often talking about daily with the Lions is that they are prepared for almost every situation, which is something that we're not used to. And as much as we want to harp on this defense, and yeah, the defense needs to be better, but the offense, this Ben Johnson does not waver.
I feel like I've watched the NFL for a long time, played Madden, so I feel like I know every play. I can call them X, Y, banana, whatever Gruden says. But I feel like there's a wrinkle every week that I've never seen in kind of a not like a gadget play, but like a reverse or an end around or something like that, where you think, all right, that's already kind of a trick play, and then they go to flip the ball or they do this, like different little wrinkles that really kind of change things that I think he tests the waters. I think he'll run plays to kind of see if it's there, kind of get it out there, and then all of a sudden he'll add like a little piece to it. That JMO, that reverse, that touchdown. I've seen different things, but overall, in one thing, we talk about injuries, and no team is gonna say, oh, we're the NFL, we can't win because of injuries. We're not gonna take that excuse, but there's only been 4 games this entire season where our offensive line, our starters have been healthy, and they continue to move the ball. They continue to run the ball. Those guys rotating. And don't get me wrong, there is a difference. Obviously, Ragnow, went out in the game, and I just feel like every week they're shuffling people. But that's the difference between offense and defense right now is these guys are just playing with heart. And don't get me wrong, it's hard to question a grown man, especially when I'm not in that situation or that level. But this offensive line is one of the best in the entire league, and it's been shuffled all year long. And then you get to defense, and we've had some significant injuries, but they just can't get any pressure. We've talked a few games where that coming out against Atlanta where we thought, oh, we got that pass rush going. Well, it's been few and far between since then.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, it almost feels like since the bye week, it's just been. I don't know what happened to the defense, but no, I'm glad you said that because, yeah, of course, teams aren't going to say, it's due to injuries. Our this department or that department is subpar because of injuries. Nobody's going to say that. It's a professional league, and that's part of what having Dan Campbell as our head coach I think is so advantageous, is because he's very much grit, next guy up, right? Doesn't matter if you're third or fourth string, right? I still need you to be that, nose to the grindstone type of player, and it shows throughout the roster because we talk about how depleted we are with injuries, and here we are 9-3. So yeah, the defense isn't there, but it's being supplemented by the offense. I only brought it up because it concerns me for a playoff run. I think something needs to be brought together with that defense. I just keep picturing it's my nightmare that the Lions host their first playoff game at Ford Field and then they lose by 17 points because their defense can't stop the other team.
I feel like now is when you're talking. Now is when teams that really make a run are really bringing on those veteran players that have kind of been waiting in the wing. So you see the Irvings. I'm interested to see what happens, especially with the injuries. There's a lot of players on our roster that, we talked about Bugs early in the season. He's been a couple healthy scratches that have been rotating people. What are we looking at? I feel like I don't want to knock Brad Holmes by any means, but I feel like if there's one thing that I'm not sure we've been really great at, it is in-season free agent signings. Maybe we just haven't had to. Maybe we trust the roster because we've had some hell of great drafts. But that's what I'm waiting to see, for that push. Do we really bring in some guys that can make that push, that have maybe sat off fresh all year? And honestly, to tell you the truth, off the top of my head, I can't even think of one person that I'm like specifically honing in on. I know there's some guys out there, but yeah, that's my. Like I said, I'm not questioning the man by any means, but that's the one thing that I haven't seen a whole lot of. And granted, we've never been in a position where we really needed to make a whole lot of, adjustments or signings during the season. So I'm interested to see if we win this game. Obviously, we sign some fresh veterans for that playoff push.
Yeah, I saw a satire piece this week. I think it was satire, but I apparently there was like some Lions folks on some forums, it might have been Reddit or something, that were pushing to get Ndamukong Suh to come back.
I think he was signing with the Eagles, or maybe I could be wrong. I thought I saw, but either way, I know he's one of those guys that's definitely. I'm sure he's waiting for his ring. So, but yeah, obviously Lions talk. We'll talk. We'll get into the Bears game, but before we do, I got two questions for you. And I want to do this before we get into the Bears game. One is, do you feel, and maybe lock is too strong of a word, but do you feel Dan Campbell is a lock to be coach of the year?
No. I think he's definitely a contender, but I don't think I would say lock yet. I think we need a few other things to pan out. I think. Gosh, I don't know. I'd have to look at it more. Like one that comes to mind, because they don't always, sometimes they don't always give coach of the year to the best record or like a top contender, So like if the Broncos keep running the way they're running, I have a feeling Sean Payton could be up for it, just because they started horribly and it took them a couple years to turn that around, and they're finally kind of getting somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. I feel like he's got to be up there as like a favorite, though. Is he? Do you know the odds or no?
No, that's what I was going to say. Okay. I should have looked at the odds, but I didn't because I was thinking about it. But before we dwell too much on that, another one here. Mm-hmm. Is there any way that Ben Johnson is wearing Detroit Lions gear next year?
I think only if Ben Johnson feels like there's unfinished business when this season shakes out. Obviously, they keep talking about he's going to be top candidate, I think, for a head coaching job. And it's just, does he feel he's prepared to be a head coach? He's obviously a great offensive mind. Can he lead an entire group of men? That's up to Ben Johnson. I'm hopeful, but I don't think so. What do you think? Like, where do you?
There's, obviously a lot of loaded questions, a lot of tangibles behind that, but I just don't see. I think if we go rip off the Super Bowl, he goes out in a blaze of glory. Now it's his time to be a coach.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But we get in and we lay an egg. Maybe he questions it because that's a pretty close-knit group. But on the flip side, with all those guys being so close, would I see Aaron Glenn be a part of the team next year if we lose, So on the flip side, but I just feel like there's a lot of ties. I think his hometown is right around Charlotte. So Carolina, that job will be open. I know that they wanted to talk to him last year. A lot of things there, Bryce Young, a young quarterback, but that team doesn't really excite you. So you got to know what you're going into, and so I don't know. It's hard. Those are the ones that he's really tied to, but I think somebody's going to be coming after him pretty hard. You hear Eric Bieniemy every year, him being out there, but I just think, you're talking from every news outlet saying, Ben Johnson he's the one that everybody's going to be going after. So it'll be interesting, and I do think it has a lot to do with where we end up this playoff run. So.
Yeah, I think with the way, with the way Ben Johnson operates on offense, he could turn, especially with Bryce Young being in Carolina, he could turn that into a well-oiled offense, I think. But for him, it's all going to be he's going to have to hire a defensive coordinator that he just 100% completely trusts, right? Because I don't think he's going to be very involved in defense.
And there's not many coaches anymore outside of maybe like a Mike McCarthy and stuff like that head coaches that actually call the offensive play. So that's a big thing too, going from, like you said, it's not just calling the play. It's you're leading that entire team. So you got that much more responsibility. Even down to you saw the first few years with Campbell. I felt like the learning curve was, when are we using our challenges? When are we burning timeouts? Stuff like that, you got a good football IQ, but until you're put in that situation, you're the one calling all the shots. That's one of those things that you kind of have to think about. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. But over under, I want him to stay, but I do think that he does take a job elsewhere, unfortunately.
Yeah. Look, I'll leave it at this. I think that I want to believe that he still wants to learn from Dan Campbell, because, like you said, there's the things like calling timeouts and clock management and stuff like that. That's just all on the field stuff. But Dan Campbell is such a good guy to learn from on off the field stuff. How do you get these guys motivated from week to week? How do you make sure they're prepared? Yeah, to buy into what you're doing, and for everyone to support each other and treat it like a brotherhood, like a family. I don't know. I feel like Ben Johnson, I'm speaking to you. I feel like you want 2 or 3 more years to learn about that. All right.
Be the protege. So
yeah,
there you go. But all right. So we'll get into this Bears matchup. We played the Bears not too long ago. Another it kind of started the whole ugly spiral on defense. Same scenario again. Like I said, a lot of tape out there. I feel like our defensive backs are looking slow. Justin Fields' knock is that he's not really been throwing a ball, but I feel like lately that offense is coming around. They kind of did us a big favor last week, beating Minnesota, low key, So I don't know what to expect from this game. I would think that we should be more well prepared. I feel like their head coach is kind of a goof. I feel like this is, it's finally. This has got to be the game that I thought the Saints were going to be when we went out there, ripped off 21-0. I was like, okay, but I didn't think we'd keep at that pace. But I feel like, okay, we got to go out and make a point. We got to punch Chicago in the mouth and take it to them. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I think, talk about defensive line. I think we've always had an issue with scrambling quarterbacks, but I feel like our defensive line has always run into a few sacks, turnovers in these kind of games. So I feel like maybe that kind of sets us back or kind of resets us, kind of gets us back on defense. Offense, I'm not too concerned about that, but I really want to see a kind of a coming out party for the kind of the last third of the season for this team to get going on defense.
Yeah, this is kind of deja vu, because our last episode was after the Chargers game, and we had the Bears game coming up, and that was 4 or 5 days before Thanksgiving. So we didn't get a chance to talk about that game. And that was part of the reason why I said Ben Johnson is just cool-headed all the time, is because that first game against Chicago was a game that we should not have won, right? I think we were down 2 possessions with 4 minutes left. And right, Ben Johnson's got a play sheet for that. Somehow he's got a play sheet for that. He calls it. We win the game. It can't be like that this time around. My thoughts are, we struggle with these. We struggle with these scrambling quarterbacks, but I also think that when you play a team twice, it's hard to beat a team twice, right? But I think if you're playing a team a second time, I'm going to trust our coaches to learn from that game more than the Bears coaches to learn from that game. And that's just objectively. That's not biased. I think we have a better coaching staff that's going to learn from that game. I think the Bears are just going to be like, guys, we almost had them last time. Let's just go out and give it our all. We'll win this one. And that's not going to be enough, you know? So I think that this game goes better than the first game. But like you said, I also thought that first game was going to be like what the Saints game was like. So I don't know. It's tough. This one's in Chicago too. So it's going to be cold.
Is there a player position group? You know, I'm on the defensive line. I think that's going to be kind of like your key unit. Is there a key area
that's a tough,
defensively for you that you need to see?
I mean, Mike, you're giving him a tough assignment. That's Lee McNeil just goes on IR, and you're like, all right. So I like it though. That's embracing the Dan Campbell next man up grit. Need that defensive line. I'm going to look for the defensive backs, and I know that Branch just had an interception. Yeah, which was that was his first since opening week, correct?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
But look, you touched on Sutton earlier. These guys need to. We cannot, if we have Bears receivers torching us, Packers really isn't even that excusable. I mean, Christian Watson's a big body; he can go up and get balls, sure, but I don't know. I can't see guys getting torched in this game. If I'm watching Justin Fields throw 20 yards downfield completing passes, we might win the game, but I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to feel confident about going forward, and I'm certainly going to be leaning like we need to clinch this division before we play Minnesota. Right? I think we have a 3-game lead with 5 games left, 5 games left.
Yeah.
So we win the next 2, Bears, Broncos. Then we pretty much have got it locked up.
Which you mentioned, Coach of the Year, the Broncos. All of a sudden that Broncos game has some meaning to it. Has some urgency. That's a lot better team. So the season end where we looked at the back half of the season and said, wow, outside of Dallas, maybe, that's, hey, we're looking good. But I mean, say hypothetically, we wrap up the season, we somehow, we're not going to see Philly or San Francisco or, but we wrap up the season and we're going in and we got a first round bye or something, something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, and this is, where we're at right now to where we are, do you think this team, if that happens, rest people against Dallas the last game of the season?
I don't think. Well, look, we got Minnesota last game of the season. We got Dallas second to last.
They're second to last game. There's a curse.
But even if we have the division clinched, right?
I guess it wouldn't be the last game, but yeah, division. Maybe we can make the same.
Yeah, I still don't think we do, and I only because that's a Saturday night game, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's a prime time. Never mind. What am I? I didn't even.
Yeah, it's like the day before New Year's Eve, and we play at night, Saturday night. So I don't think we'll rest, but that's also going to be. We talk about like we thought when we talked early in the season, we looked at the back half of the schedule. It was a cake schedule, right?
Yeah.
And then we get beat by Green Bay. Well, we struggle with Chicago, and then we get beat by Green Bay on Thanksgiving. Saints game was a little closer than it should have been, but early on we had them beat. Now we look down to it. We got Bears again, who we barely beat. Broncos, like you said, they're coming up, so they're tougher than we originally thought. 2 games against Minnesota, who are chasing us in the division, and we got a game against Dallas.
Quickly change that. The last 5, and I feel like Dallas. The reason I was asking that question because being that far into the season, I feel like that's a measuring stick game where you have to go toe to toe with them.
Oh
Because
yeah,
we talk about Philly and San Francisco, but Dak Prescott's probably playing the best football that he's played in years. That team is looking good, and they don't even really have that great of a running game, and they're still lighting people up. So I feel like that is definitely a measuring stick that you want to go into that game and kind of set the tone right before you go into the playoffs. So
yeah.
that's
That's
that's a team that kind of, I wouldn't say he's getting overlooked, but you're talking about the 3-4 seed. They're just falling down
yeah.
in it, but they got a good record.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. There's going to be stock in that game because I mean, if you look at the rest of our games, it's Bears and Vikings. They're in our division, and if all things go correctly, they're not going to make the playoffs. You got the Broncos in there; they're an AFC opponent. So who do you have? That is, I mean, it is the definition of a measuring stick. Honestly, the way you put it, like the Cowboys are an NFC team; they're an NFC contending team. How you play them in weeks? What is it? 17 now, right? Because we got 18 weeks, so that's week 17 is gonna, for all intents and purposes, dictate how you make it through the NFC playoffs because the Cowboys are neck and neck with the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what
And
I'm saying. With that, the only reason the Cowboys aren't being talked about is because the Eagles are the number one seed, but the
right,
Cowboys are right there.
right. So yeah, so the Cowboys end up playing a road game, really, which they could be a bit. Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. I can't wait as we approach that. What the records look like. We got to take care of business in Chicago though. So let's get some predictions. I'm not gonna be as out there as I was last time because I learned from my mistakes. I'm going to give us a 31-23 win, though. I do think we come away with a win.
I say 38-21. That's where I was at. Give up
Okay,
21
okay.
points. But I think that, our offensively, I feel good about it. And I even think at 21 points against the Bears, giving up 21 points is still just makes me feel better than
Yeah.
just what it could be. So I guess.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Look, both of us. This is us being realistic. We're saying that the Lions are going to give up 20 plus points to the Bears, which
It's still
in
win.
in reality we should not do, right?
No, that's what I'm
But
saying. That
but
that
we're probably
offense
going to.
has been abysmal for a lot of the season. But
Yeah.
but anyways, glad we got our picks in there. Crazy how we mentioned the end of the season, how it's transpired since we did our original picks to now where we're at, what these teams are fighting for, and kind of the playoff picture for the next few games. Because like you said, the only team on that list really is Chicago. Not going to play a picture in it, but ultimately gonna want to play spoiler against us after what we did to them in the
Yep.
last few seconds. But Zach, I think that is what we got in the Lions here. You got anything you want to add quick?
No, I think that about wraps it up with the Lions. Yeah, we're just looking forward to a run of the mill dub this weekend. We don't need any excitement, but we can
Absolutely.
let's shift into some other sports going on in the Motor City. We'll start on the ice.
Yeah.
Detroit. Obviously, the big news being Patrick Kane. I put y'all on Patrick Kane watch probably 6-7 weeks ago. So any listener of ours was well prepared that this was a possibility, and now it's happened. He could potentially make, as we record, it's Wednesday night. He could potentially make his debut tomorrow, so that'd be Thursday, 12/7. Very interested to see how that all shakes out. What were your immediate thoughts when you saw that go
Well,
down?
I think maybe like episode 3 or 4, I asked you if you heard, hey, you hear any of these rumors about Kane? And you're like, at that point, you're like, no, I haven't heard anything. There's really not a whole lot about it, but we talked about, his ex teammate in Chicago being a big part of that, and there was really nothing behind that. The one thing is Patrick Kane. You're talking about one of the greatest American hockey players of all time. Going to go into the Hall of Fame. Arch rival. Chicago comes over with us. I think the biggest thing for me is that contract doesn't hurt you any.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's huge.
the leadership aspect of what he brings for this young team that is already playing well is
Mm-hmm.
probably the most valuable thing. I did see, I think there was a statistic, there's been 4 players that have had that hip surgery, and it showed the 4 players, their statistics after it. And of the 4 players, only one's played, I think, like 44 games.
Yeah, that's not
So
good.
it's really, really unheard of. But overall, like I said, I mean, whether he plays or not, I mean, he's going to play. He's going to dress. He wants to play. Again, I think that connect. He even referenced, his connection as to why he came here. But it just goes back to having that veteran leader. Exactly, kind of what I'm talking about with the Lions, getting those veteran leaders in the locker room with those young core guys to let them know, kind of lead them in the right direction. He's been a winner. But overall, that's one of the signings that I was really excited. I wasn't shocked because I was waiting for it, although I felt like kind of towards the end we were kind of out of the sweepstakes. But when he finally did, I was like, all right, man, that's the Stevie Y that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, I was kind of in that boat too. I kind of thought we were kind of out on that, where it was just like, hey, yeah, cool, but keep it at an arm's distance. And then it went down, and everything I'm hearing afterwards, it feels like Steve made the right decision, right? Like you said, the contract doesn't hurt you. It's 1 year. It's basically try it, see how it goes type of deal. And then you hear about his interview process, and he's telling teams, because he met with other teams. I think he met with Vegas, and I think there's some other teams that he met with as well.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, I want to work my way on. I don't expect to be thrown on the number one power play. I don't expect to be thrown on line one. All things you like to hear out of a guy coming out of a surgery, like you mentioned, doesn't have a good track record. And yeah, just to see how he gels, especially with DeBrincat. They had a lot of success together in Chicago. I did see an interview that Patrick Kane did with the Detroit media, and he said, he addressed it. He's like, I don't really see it as betraying Chicago, because they asked him, like, you played so long in Chicago, and now you're going to their biggest historical rival, and he's like, yeah, I don't really see it as betraying Chicago. It's just like, this was a good opportunity for me, and yada yada yada. So I don't think there's going to be any bad blood or anything like that. It's just, I guess we're just going to see how it goes. I mean, Patrick Kane aside, the Wings are still on fire, second in division behind Boston Bruins. Third in the league in goals per game, almost 4. We're at 3.8 goals per game. And yeah, if you're a Detroit fan out there and you're listening and you're not watching the Red Wings, I mean, watch them. They are much different than they were a year or two ago.
It's fun. I mean, yeah, it's not like watching the Pistons.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest change for me, and this is what I want to point out before we move on, is that their feet are always moving. And in the past under Jeff Blashill, they were kind of standing still and trying to just kind of relying on playmakers. Now everybody is constantly moving, circling, cycling down low, 3-person or 5-person on the power play, just circling around. And you'll notice they draw a lot of penalties that way. They get a lot of open looks that way. And that's why they're scoring at such a high clip. And it's very fun to watch. 3-game win streak, 7 wins in the last 10, which is good. Ever since they came back from Sweden, they only got 1 point in those games in Sweden, and they didn't like that. And they've come back with some fire, which is good. But yeah, like you mentioned, Pistons kind of going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like they've taken the brunt of Troy Weaver and Jeff Gore, like, all right, sell the team, kind of mentality.
Yeah.
I've even asked people this, like, we went through the 0-16 Lions, and I feel like watching them, yeah, it was painful and sufferable in many cases, but like, I didn't feel like, I mean, granted, it was a joke in the NFL. It was a joke, but I feel like this is probably sports in Detroit. This is probably one of the worst teams I've ever seen, and I have no clue how they are so bad. With the talent, the draft picks, the coach.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I don't know if they just can't figure it out or if these guys don't like this coach. I haven't looked into, but I mean, we're clueless. And I'm not. Not gonna say a lot about the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not a whole lot to say, to be honest. They're 2-18. They win 10% of their games. It's not a team that you want to watch. And I don't know, like you said, we're not gonna dive too much into it because there is in such shambles. I was watching like the Suns Lakers game last night, because it was part of it was the quarterfinals in the in-season tournament or whatever, which I still don't understand how that works. But
I know when they have the statistics that say this is an in-season tournament, I said, okay.
yeah. But like I catch a part of a Pistons game, and I'm like, I don't understand with all this talent, all this young talent, how they are not winning games. And then I watch like a Suns Lakers game, and I go, okay, I get why the Pistons aren't winning games, and they just don't look like. Maybe they just need more. They just need more time. They just need more experience on the floor together. I don't know, but either way, probably the last in line to win a championship out of the three.
Yeah. So, anyways, enough about that. But Zach, I know you want to talk about college football playoffs. Let me start this. We'll get into college football playoffs. Let me start this. I'm going to give you my take.
Yeah.
And there's two things about this. So the college football playoffs. This is the first year that I feel like the college football playoffs did what they say they're going to do. They 100%. They want the best product. They don't necessarily say they want the best records. They don't want the best things. They want the best product. And this is the first year they've actually done that. Is the right pick? No, not at all. But this is the first year they finally did.
Yeah.
So ESPN, or I think it wasn't ESPN statistic. I don't know what it was. Basically, I think they released this either this morning or yesterday. ESPN was set to lose out on $5 million if Florida State made the championship. But now that Alabama's in there, they're gaining this back. You're taking probably one of the best players in the nation. He got hurt. You're taking him out of it. I get it. But you look on a pro perspective, half of the league, I think this year at one point in the NFL, played with backup quarterbacks. So, a totally different scenario, but you don't punish those teams. If they make the playoffs, they make the playoffs. They're in. It is what it is. It's a team sport. Again, this is why we're going to a different format next year. But what are the odds that the last season of the College Football Playoff Committee turns out to be like this, and they're just
100%.
They can wipe their hands of it. They can wipe their hands of it and just skate into the playoffs and collect their money.
The odds, yes, Mike. The odds are 100% because that's exactly why they did it. Because they know that everyone is going to use that line when they end every debate like this. They're going to say, "Oh, well, it's going to be different next year." So it just wipes them clean of the
You'll
absolute,
forget all about it.
Oh my God, they butchered this. This is they took all of the integrity out of the sport of football and made it a show about them, attention-seeking suits who are way past their prime in life and need to be talked about. So this is what we're doing, right? This is what we're sitting here and we're talking about them, right? So they're happy. I hope they're happy. But what they've done is, I don't know how you go undefeated in a Power 5 conference, win your conference championship, and you don't even get the chance to call yourself champions. You don't even get the chance. It is absolutely ridiculous to me that, and it's all SEC bias. And you see it leaks into the other rankings as well. Georgia, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but Georgia is ranked higher than Ohio State, and they should not have been, because Ohio State lost to a better opponent than Georgia lost to. And yeah, you could say it's not in a conference championship, but let's all be honest. The Michigan-Ohio State game was a conference championship. And especially if you want to talk about, the committee loves to talk about intangibles and how it's not about who won the conference championship. Okay, well, Ohio State didn't play in a conference championship, okay, but it was basically a conference championship. We all know that. So what it should have been is Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Florida State. And then what it should have been the Orange Bowl is Alabama and Ohio State. And that is still a very good game. Alabama, Ohio State. And then you leave Georgia out as number 7.
And you get your money from the Alabama, Florida State.
Exactly.
The Alabama, Ohio State game.
Exactly, because that is still a show. You can still promote that game as a very good game to watch. I don't know how they screwed this up. And let me say another thing. Rivalry week, right? Rivalry week is tough for every team. And I understand that these rivalry games are hard. Florida State beat we'll start with Alabama. Alabama played a 5-6 Auburn team and won on a miracle 4th and 31 or whatever it was on the last play of the game with their starting quarterback. Florida State played a 5-6 in-state rival, Florida, who is an SEC team, beat them with their backup quarterbacks. Did not need a miracle play.
No love.
Florida State beat now number 13 LSU early in the season.
With Jaden
Texas
Daniels.
lost to number 12 Oklahoma. And I'm not saying Florida State gets in over Texas, but I'm saying if Texas is in, Florida State is also in. I just do not see the argument other than money for Alabama being in the playoff. And when they break it down to just money, that is somebody who doesn't truly love the sport of football. And that's why I said they mocked the sport of football. It is no longer about football. It is about making the college playoff committee a show about themselves. I don't know.
Do you think
I finally had this chance to get it off my chest?
Do you think this was because I feel like the NCAA is one of the most corrupt organizations around.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like this was the NCAA's way of saying, you know what, the NIL deals got passed that we never wanted to see, so now we're going to stick it to you guys one more time?
I mean, it could be. And honestly, I guess there's nothing we can do about it, but screw them. And did you see the thing about Florida State possibly boycotting the game? Have you seen all those?
I didn't know. Okay, so I was reading a thing, and there's way too many damn spoofs on Twitter, especially with this buying the damn check mark. So there's no valid points anymore. But I did see one that was pretty funny. It said Florida came together with Florida State, and both teams are boycotting. And this shows the power of I don't know, something. But it was like it's never going to happen. But it is very much like, is that what it's going to come down to? Like taking a stand and you know what? I don't know if you saw. When Florida State got the news, Mike Norvell, I think he's a great coach and a great leader, and he kind of hung his head and he just sat there. I don't know if you saw that video, and then he immediately got up and started talking to his guys, and that's these are. I mean, I don't look at being a high school kid going through college. When I was in college, I thought I was a man, but these are still kids, man. These are. You're punishing kids who work-life balance, and when we talk work-life, I'm talking football life balance for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they're getting everything. They're getting money now. They're getting taken care of, but what it does to a psyche of a kid that's done everything right, that puts their body on the line all season long. Some of these kids are never going to sniff the NFL. This is their biggest opportunity, and you've got a bunch of 70 and 80-year-old schmucks that are just sitting in a room saying, you know what, you did everything you needed to do. You went 12-0, but I'm going to put a team with one loss in front of you. A couple of them, actually.
It is so disgraceful. It is so shameful. God, I just don't like you said, these are kids, and these are kids who went 13-0 in a major conference, and they beat tough teams. They beat LSU. They beat Clemson in Clemson. They win their conference championship with a third-string quarterback, and Louisville is not this is not a cakewalk, right? Yeah. This is not Iowa that Michigan had to beat. This is a tough team. Held them to 6 points because they said, and you know what? That's the biggest thing is they knew that they had to hold them to 6 points.
Well, defense,
they said, look, defense. Your offense is shorthanded, and you guys have to go out there and play the game of your life. And they went out there and played the game of their life and get dropped 2 spots for it. It's just absolutely disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting to me. I have nothing else to say about that. I hope Alabama gets absolutely boat raced by Michigan and somehow Florida State can beat Georgia, because it actually won't even matter, because the playoff committee is still going to be there. And oh God, man, it's they made such a mockery of football. I am so much I was always on the fence, but now I am NFL over college football any day. I love the way that the college guys play, but it's
Alabama's going to win it all now.
They won't, bro. That's the thing is I'm not even scared about it. They might score 14 points on Michigan. They might, bro. They could barely beat Auburn. They were barely beating USF when they were here in Tampa. Barely beating USF, bro. Memphis scores 40 points on USF when they play them. I
I
am not
love
worried
this.
about
This is
Alabama. They are not a top 4 team.
in,
The only way they're a top 4 team is that they make ESPN money, and that is not football. I hate it.
I love this. In years of doing shows with you, I figured baseball would get you fired up like this, but no, it comes to the college football playoffs.
Look, part of it is honestly when I moved to Florida, we agreed. We kind of adopted Florida State as our Florida team. It was between them and Miami, and we went with Florida State. So I have a tiny bit of bias, but this is how livid it. Imagine if you are the way you are an Ohio State fan. Imagine an FSU fan.
Yeah, like a real summit. Yes, yeah.
I'm knocking doors in my neighborhood. Like, are you okay? I'm with you. I feel you. This is absolutely disgusting what you're going through.
So, hey, there you had it. Spoken from a true implant in Florida, right there. You know. So, but I love it, man. That's nice, man. I'm sitting down here. You know, everyone's sleeping in the house. I can be as loud as I want, and I'm just kind of cool, calm, and collected. And here we go. Zach's just letting it fly. Zach's
I know
letting it fly. I love it.
My fiance is probably worried out there.
banging on the wall next to you.
But man, it gets blood boiling. I could go on all day about just how ridiculous these guys are that sit in that room and they just like because here's the thing. Here's the flip side. If they put FSU in and they leave Alabama on the outskirts, number 5, leave them number 5, right? And you hear the Alabama faithful complain about it for a day, maybe 2. But it's easy to shut them up, right? You're like, you guys have had a run at 90% of the college football playoffs. So relax. You've had your chance. Let's let 13-0 Florida State. Oh, bro. How?
Well, hey, I think that is a great note to go out on. No need for a roundtable, you know, because that was
my roundtable.
That's good. I love it. But yeah, Zach, I guess anything else you wanna throw down, quick mention, or you tapped out?
No, I'm good. Take us out of here while I catch my breath.
All right. Well, hey, looking forward to obviously the Bears Sunday. Zach and I have our picks in. We're both on the I almost said both on the Bears. The way things are going, who knows? But both on the Lions. This has to be a game. I picked the defensive line is a focal point. Zach picked that secondary. So appreciate you guys hanging with us tonight. A little long episode here. Zach had to let it fly. We're definitely going to get those clips out there. But I love it. Zach's rant. So tune in. We'll see you guys next week. We should have back-to-back episodes for the first time in a few weeks. But overall, we appreciate you jumping in with us. And hopefully we'll see you after another big W.